This is the plaintiff, Laura Lewis. She says she hired the defendant to paint her house. He showed her an expired license and hoodwinked her, and she wants her $900 returned and is suing for it here today. This is the defendant, Ricky Millward. He says the plaintiff knew full well before he started that he wasn't licensed and had no insurance. That's why he gave her the great deal he did. He bought all the materials and refuses to return her money. He's accused of fudging the details.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says she hired the defendant to paint her house, thinking the guy was a professional, and yeah, he did a terrible job, she says. But the defendant says he gave the plaintiff a great deal, and she knew full well he wasn't licensed. It's the case of a house of a different color.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lewis, what happened here?
On October 15th, I signed a contract with Rick Millward to paint the exterior of my home for a total cost of $3,300. In the
How
contract,
did you find him as a painter? Like, did you know him? Had you used him before? Had a friend used him?
So I had found him through my friend, and he was working on a house across the street from her. They started conversing with one another, and on the 1st of October, she started working for him as a day laborer. And I asked her if he would be, I asked to meet with him to get a bid, if he would be willing to paint my home. And he came over and looked at my home and gave me a bid. And I felt confident in the conversation we had and proceeded with the contract.
And you entered into a contract.
Right. And on the 15th, we signed the contract. That evening, I was rereading the contract, and I noticed there was no license number on the contract. I've worked with contractors before, and usually their license number is on it. So that was on a Thursday.
Had you discussed a license with the defendant before you signed the contract?
I believe he indicated that he was an electrician by trade, not a general contractor. But he indicated to me that he was a licensed electrical contractor. On the bid, he says he's a licensed contractor.
Electrical contractor, which I guess,
right.
Was that expired, Mr. Millward, because you're retiring?
I had let it lapse, actually.
Right.
It expired because I hadn't renewed it, and I had also let both her friend Mary and her know that, and that I was retiring. And at no time did Mary actually work for me. She was a subcontractor, and that was explained to Mrs. Lewis.
What kind of license did you want him to have, Ms. Lewis? What is it that you think he needs in order to paint a house?
I wanted him to be a licensed and bonded contractor, so that if there was any damage done to my house, that he was bonded.
But I'm wondering who put that in your head, Mary? Because you didn't have any of that in your head when you signed a contract. You didn't look for that. That's not on the contract. And I don't believe anybody discussed licensing until after you signed the contract. You know, it was like an afterthought. It was so very clearly an afterthought on your part. So who did you talk to that said to you, hey, you want to make sure he's licensed and bonded?
No one. I have dealt with contractors in the past, and on their bids,
if you're so savvy because you've dealt with so many contractors, why didn't you read what you were signing?
I understand that. But on the contract, it also states that he is a licensed electrical contractor by the state of Idaho.
But you're not having him do electrical work.
I understand that. I understand that contractors can have a wide range of crafts. I understand that he's an electrician by trade, not a painter. But in my mind, if he was licensed and bonded, that would give me the security I needed to let him proceed with the house.
Yeah, no, ma'am, I don't dispute that I would want somebody licensed and bonded. I'm just telling you I know when I hire someone who isn't. You see, their prices are cheaper, the scope of the work isn't that important or technical, and, painting is kind of that kind of thing. So I see that you entered into the contract on October 15th. On October 16th, You write to him, hi, I just want to confirm you are a licensed and bonded contractor. I don't see your license number on the bid. Call it CYA. It's obviously the first time that you bring that up. And then what do you tell her when she brings that up? You say, let me see what I can do in terms of what, like trying to see if you can get bonded just for the job, or what? What were you trying to do, Mr. Millward?
I believe I'll see what I can do, followed a phone conversation with her rather than the text. And I reiterated, I might add, that I was not licensed or bonded in the city of Chubbuck. I was not a painting contractor. I did not need a permit to repaint a home. And the only thing that brought me to doing this work for Miss Lewis was her friend who had approached me looking for some work. She had approached me several times while I was finishing up a project for a friend of mine, and I told her that, I could get some work for her, but that she would have to just do it. I would help her out with any estimating or what she might have to do, but that I was retiring, and that's how it would have to be.
So, right. At some point you tell Ms. Lewis, that you were going to see what you could do. So did you ever go down to the city to see how much a license would cost?
I know how much a license would cost.
How much does a license cost? How much does a painting license cost in Chubbuck?
With the city of Chubbuck to obtain a license.
So it's $50. Yeah, because I was going to say it's not much.
No, but the insurance is, and a bond.
But you had offered to get bonded for this job. How much would it have cost you to get bonded for this job?
That's generally based upon the amount of bond, which we could never agree on. When this all came about is after the person that we spoke of here, that we got the bid. This lady had a small problem, and I couldn't have her working with me, or especially not for me. And she'd been warned a few times that she couldn't come to work as she was, and she actually quit.
What was the problem?
Alcohol, drinking.
Welcome back to the People's Court. The question, is it a good idea to hire somebody who is unlicensed and uninsured to do work on your house? We will find out as we go inside the courtroom.
She quit between the 15th and the 16th. So on the 16th, I get these emails and texts from Laura telling me she needed licenses and bonds and everything else to do the work. I told her I could probably get something project specific. And later on, she comes back with, well, if I did all that and hired her friend, that I could have the project. And if you follow through with the text and things that I submitted, it clearly states there that, I was not going to.
Yeah, then all of a sudden it was that she wanted you to be licensed with the state and with the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you buy any supplies, or you hadn't gotten around to that yet?
I bought supplies, and I also had materials on site and tools. We had shown up to do the job.
So are there materials at your house, Ms. Lewis? Is there paint and materials at your house?
No.
What are the supplies that you say are at her house, Mr. Millward? Is there paint at her house?
There are some tarps and electrical cords. I did not leave any materials at her home, but materials for the project,
okay.
Yeah.
Been purchased, but you have them.
Yes, I have them.
That was my question. All right,
yes, I have the materials. I misspoke. It's my tools, some tools that are there on site still.
And let me ask you, Mr. Millward, did you guys ever discuss returning a portion of the deposit? Because you didn't really do any work. So had you two discussed at any point in time you returning a portion of the deposit, or no? Because in fact, I see it in your text where you say, well, you're not going to get a full refund. I
did attempt to discuss that with her, and yes, there was some work done with the project.
Okay, so why did you say in the text, this is your text, I am willing to do a partial refund or complete the contract as written, or I have proposed 2 other options to the original contract and to address the refund request, both of which you have rejected. So what do you propose? And she just doesn't answer. So what was a partial refund you had in mind?
Possibly 50%. At this point, I don't wish to refund anything, Your Honor. I spent quite a bit of time rendering drawings for her with the different materials available, and I've spent more time with these proceeds than...
You spent exactly the same amount of time that you'd spent when you wrote that text. You didn't work on it after you wrote that text. Okay? So at the time of that, the only thing that's different is that she filed a lawsuit against you, and you're angry because she dragged you into court. But the entire contract was for how much? $3,300?
Yes.
Right. I see where he does text you and say to you that he'll get a bond for the specific job. Why wasn't that good enough? We get a license for $50 and a bond for the specific job. We're talking about resolving our problems with less than $100. I'm just surprised that it descended to this. But Ms. Lewis, you have a problem, and your problem is that you think that you can enter into a contract on day 1 and then demand changes to the contract on day 2. A contract is your offer, his acceptance. You say, will you paint my house for $3,300? And he says yes. He's going to give you his talent, and you're going to give him your money. That's it. The contract is sealed. And then you turn around, you say, wait, I have several clauses I'm going to add to our contract. No. Okay? So now there's $900 on his side, and I believe that what he should have is the benefit, the profit that he would have made on the deal. How long would it have taken to paint the house? You were also going to do siding?
We were going to replace some of the siding that was damaged beyond the point of cleaning up to paint. The profit for the house would have been probably about $900 all total.
I know that sounds fishy because that's what he's got, but I kind of agree with him that would be the profit margin on a paint job like that, because it takes a long time.
The project is way underbid. I was trying to help a couple of people out, and as they say, no good deed goes unpunished, and that's...
I'm going to allow him to keep the $900. I find that you're the one who breached the contract, and he doesn't have to return any of the deposit. That's my judgment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the judge finds for the defendant in this case, he can keep the $900. Ms. Lewis, what do you think about right now?
I thought I was in the right because within 24 hours, I had noticed my error and I had made a mistake. And I thought he would be forthcoming and return my money.
Okay, you've learned a lesson valuable. That cost you $900. Okay. Mr. Millward, let me ask you how you're feeling right now. I'm sure you feel pretty good, right?
Well, I don't know that I feel very good about it. It's been a mess from beginning to end, and just tried to help the lady out, and both of them, and it turned out bad, so...
All right, sir. Well, I hope you have a happy retirement. Good for you.
Am I the only person who thinks it's absolutely ridiculous to require someone to have a license to paint houses? Paint a house. You got to get a license to mow your lawn, too? I mean, it's absurd. I mean, I painted houses for a couple of summers when I was a kid in high school and my first year of college. It wasn't all that complicated. We were not licensed, bonded, insured, etc. at the time.
So Jane wants to know this. Hey, Harvey. My neighbor's tree roots have invaded my yard to the point where I can't even cut my lawn. If I cut the roots and his tree falls down, will I be in trouble? The law is this. You are allowed to cut invading roots and branches up to the property line, your property line. You cannot go any further. If you cut them to the property line and the tree dies, in theory, you're okay. You are allowed to do that. What I would advise to avoid a problem is to talk to your neighbor first and say, look, we got a problem here. You want to get a professional tree person out here? I'm fine with it, but I'm going to cut these roots if you don't come out within X period of time. That's what I would do.